Hello, YouTube. Guess we might as well start with an introduction. I am Disciple Chopper with Disciple Christian Motorcycle Club. And my mission is to disciple men to daily word and prayer time and support the 1% world in prayer. And this is Chopper's Garage. So, main purpose of this YouTube channel, though I'm sure we'll add in other stuff too and see where this all leads us, but is to talk about God a little bit and do some wrenching. Hopefully teach anybody and everybody that it could bless a little bit. We're going to be starting off with how to do TCLOCKS. If you don't know what those are, you'll find out soon. And maybe a little bit of protocol. We'll see how things go. So we're going to start this off with a little bit of encouragement coming from a good word. Now this one's a little close to my heart, honestly. I've been through a lot of my life, and maybe one day we'll get into a little bit of that, but I've come to learn that we've got to put on the armor of God every single day. Because the day that you aren't prepared, that you don't have that armor of God on, you become a real easy target, and you go down the rabbit hole of depression and suffering. And we need that protection. Not only that protection, but the ability to do spiritual warfare and encourage each other and lift each other up, because it becomes a lot harder to be able to do those things and to be able to do good works in the world when you don't got that armor on. Ephesians 6:10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. Good stuff. Maybe next time we'll go into the next part of it and go into the details of what that armor is. But if you're curious today, I encourage you to go back into Ephesians 6 and look it up. It's good stuff. So a little bit ago, I was talking about TCLOCKS. What are they? So you'll have to excuse me because I got to bring up my notes. For those that already know me, know that I suffer from some memory problems caused by brain damage when I was a teenager. So there's your fair warning. I hopefully won't have to bring it up again in this channel. I don't like talking about it, but it is a reality of life. So what are TCLOCKS? TCLOCKS is an acronym that stands for tires, controls, lights, oils, chassis and chain, kickstand, and suspension. It's an acronym to help you remember what to look over on your bike. Because while these are all awesome, wild death machines, and we love doing crazy stuff on them, the last thing we want to do is have something that can be preventable cause something unexpected. Especially when we're out there having fun. Because I don't know about you, I love wrenching, but I don't like it interrupting when I'm riding. And I especially don't like it when I'm in a pack and somebody's saddlebag or something flies off and you're dodging out of the way, or an exhaust, or a million other things, or it just breaks down or locks up, especially when it was something that could have been avoided if you just checked it over before you left. So we're going to go over how to do that, or at least examples, because every bike's a little different. I'm a Harley mechanic myself, though I'll work on basically anything, but Harleys are what I've been working on ever since I was little. So I'm going to put on the screen here what Disciple Christian Motorcycles Club TCLOCKS look like, or as we call them, our seasonal checklist. Now, I don't expect you to memorize that all real quick or understand it just from a sheet of paper, but what we are going to do is go through it. Now, it may be a multi-part section here, so if it is, you'll see at the end of the video, and I'll tell you that you'll have to wait for part 2 or 3 or whatever we get to. But we're going to cut out real quick here, and we're going to get a view of, I've got a 03 Road King here, and we're going to go over the first section, which is tires and wheels. Alrighty, we're back. So, to start off with checking your tires and rims, or tires and wheels, sorry. That way we're not being specific, because some people may not have rims. You may have spokes. There's a lot of ways to make a tire. But regardless, for your tires themselves, you're going to need to start out with 2 things. You're going to need to start off with tire depth gauge. Both of these tools are real cheap off of Amazon. You can find them pretty much anywhere, or your local mechanic store. Always support your local shops. And an air pressure gauge. So what are we looking for here? So we'll start with tire depth. So we're going to get this close here. So for motorcycles, most of the time you're going to end up in that yellow section right there on this one. Somewhere ranging between 7 and 3. Once we get into red, then we're starting to look at, you're not going to get much traction, especially in the rain. Now, as for us, we're riding no matter what the weather. Sun, shine, rain, don't matter. So we need to make sure that we're having that traction so that we ain't slipping and losing it and getting somebody else hurt or ourselves. And the way this works, have it fully extended. And you're going to go right to where the depth is. Push down. And you can see, and this is how this tire comes. These are almost brand new, because I'm almost touching green. So we're still good on tire depth. How about air pressure? So on my bike, and you should look up the specs for your specific tires, but in general, especially on Harleys, most of the time you want to start between 36 to 38 PSI on the front. This is going to allow you to use the physics of traction and compression to be able to grip those turns real good when you have to push those bars a little bit, especially when counter steering. But you want a nice hard 40 PSI in the back. And this is kind of the opposite. And we're just not, a lot of people may already know some of this information. We're just not going to assume, because this may bless somebody that doesn't know the basics. So we're going over everything, including the little stuff. So when you're checking the PSI, you want this, unlike the gauge where you want it full extended, you want that all the way in. And what I usually do is there's a little knob on the back that's actually used for releasing pressure, but that's where I put my thumb. Push it in. Hey, look, from it being sitting here for a little bit, because I've been riding my V-Rod for a while, it's only at 32 PSI. It's going to need some air. So I'm going to fill up this tire and then get back to you. Alrighty, we're back. Put some air in the tire, so that's all good now. Nobody wants to hear the compressor running. We also, while we're compressing it afterwards, and I got up on the jack, rotated the tire around, made sure there's no deformations, cracks that might indicate dry rot, bubbles, anything like that. Made sure there was no nails in it or anything in the tire, and made sure that the tire spins smoothly. Making sure that the bearings are still good. Now you're hearing a little bit of noise from the brake pad. That's because the thing needs a bath, and it's got a lot of salt on it from riding in the winter here. which is riding in the cold, and then letting it sit in the cold is also why your air pressure might go down. If it goes down consistently over time, that's an indication you got a leak somewhere. And then it's time to take it to a mechanic, most likely. Most of the time, you're going to need to replace the tire. Or if you're going to replace the tire yourself, do that. It's not worth it to ride on a tire that you don't trust. So the next thing that we need to check on is your brake pads. So if you take a flashlight right in here and look at your brake pads, most of them, not all, but most of them, you'll have the metal plate that the brake pads are attached to, and then you'll have the pad itself, and in that pad will be a little cut or slit inside of it, usually in the center. If you can no longer see the slit, and you should take a look at them before you put them on so you know what you're looking at, they need replaced. And this is my personal take on when to replace them, because I don't want them getting down to bare knuckle and messing up my rotors. That's just bad news. Because then I got more to replace when I want to just get out there and ride. I mean, most of the time my bikes aren't even clean, because if I can be cleaning it, I can be riding it. But anyways, you want to check your brake pads. Make sure they're up to snuff. And if you don't have that line in there, again, look at a brand new brake pad, compare it to what you have. If you're starting to get a lot of wear in it, especially if you're planning on putting on a lot of miles, maybe it's time to replace them. That's something you will definitely learn over time of, if you don't buy the ones that have the slit in it that give you kind of a cheap guide, that's something that you'll learn over time of, okay, how close is it getting before it's really time to replace them. On top of, you'll be feeling a difference. You won't be braking as good anymore either. And much as we want to go, we need to be able to stop. So wheels, switching over to that. Like I said, I showed you a little bit here that you do want to check the bearings as well, make sure it's rotating good. It's not getting hung up anywhere. Wheels, you want to check for things like, well, I don't have spokes. Mine are cast. But you want to check for cracks. Put your ear to that real close. Make sure that nothing sounds like it's leaking. Like I said, you want to check the bearings. You want to check any seals, especially around the valve stem. Another nice little trick is, if you have suspicions that it might not be how it should be, take a little bit of Dawn detergent soap, mix it with some water, spray it all over that, and you'll see bubbles anywhere that it's leaking air. And that is tires. And you know what? I think we're just going to split this into sections. So we're going to go over controls and lights next time. So look forward to part 2.